Hello everyone, thank you for joining and welcome to another SysKit webinar. Now today's webinar topic will be application usage monitoring with SysKit. We're going to talk about when and which applications are being used, are they license compliant, and what is their performance status. But before we come to that, let's briefly do the introduction. Now, my name is Silvio and I'm a product marketing manager at Acceleratio. Here with me, we have Frane, who is a SysKit product owner, and he will be answering your questions at the end of the webinar. You can say hello to our attendees, Frane.
Hello guys, how are you?
Acceleratio is a software development company based in Croatia, and we specialize in creating enterprise solutions for platforms like SQL, SharePoint, Windows Server, Citrix, and others alike. Now, we currently have over 2,500 clients from more than 70 countries across the globe. And many of those clients are big name companies such as Coca-Cola, Ernst & Young. Well, you can probably recognize many logos from this slide. And most recently, even the European Space Agency became our client. So we currently have 4 products here, and speaking of them, you can see them on this slide. We have SysKit, the server monitoring and administration tool, SPDocket, which is used for SharePoint documentation and management, CloudKit 365, the reporting tool for Office 365, and SQL Docket, the auto-discover and documentation tool for SQL servers. Now, if you would like to know more about any of our products, just check our company webpage or simply contact our sales team. They will provide you with all the information you really need. Now, let's go through today's webinar agenda. First of all, I will tell you a few housekeeping rules, and then I will explain how can you ask your questions using this application, GoToWebinar. After that, we'll do a short SysKit overview, followed by the short intro on today's topic. Next, we'll have a demo where I will present all the possibilities SysKit offers when it comes to application monitoring. At the end, of course, we have the Q&A session where Frane will be answering your questions. So let's start with the housekeeping rules. You can ask your question during the entire webinar, and the most interesting ones will be answered publicly at the end. A recording of this webinar will be available online in a few days' time, and in about a week you can expect the webinar summary to be live at our blog, and it will be published with all your webinar questions answered. So speaking of questions here, in order to ask a question using the GoToWebinar application, all you need to do is open the question chat box and type them in there. All of your questions will be answered by our product team, and you will find all of them in our webinar summary, as I already mentioned, about a week from now. So let me explain what SysKit is for those of you who are not really familiar with what it does and what is its benefits. Now, SysKit is a server monitoring and administration tool designed to help system admins and consultants in their daily tasks. Now, with SysKit, you can monitor user activity, application usage, server performance. You can track server inventory, you can generate documentation. With SysKit, you can basically audit all events on your servers. SysKit also enables you to simplify remote server management, and it does it with the help of PowerShell. So you should look up into it too. Another important fact is that SysKit is an agentness tool, and that means that you can monitor all your servers using only one central console. There's also one more great thing, and SysKit has a web application available. And that application enables you to reach your monitoring data from practically anywhere. All you need is browser and, well, some internet connection. To continue further onto SysKit, all SysKit reports can be exported to PDF or Excel for better presentation values. You can set up intelligent alerts, and they will notify you whenever some unusual event happens on your server. So everything that happens and you don't know about it, well, SysKit will tell you about it. And with SysKit's performance monitoring feature, SysKit enables you to track all existing performance counters they are, and you can track all of them in real time and historically, and that way you can really pinpoint the performance problem of your servers. What I would also like to mention is the server inventory feature, and it enables you to generate server documentation and track all system inventory changes. So that's all about SysKit. And let's get to today's burning topic, the application monitoring, and how can SysKit help you with it. So first off, when we're talking about the administration of large environments with increasing number of users, the first problem on your mind is probably, well, scalable monitoring. Okay, maybe not in that words exactly, but we are all aware that the larger the server farm gets, it is harder to keep them under control without using a proper, and I mean proper monitoring tool. In our last webinar, about a month ago, I was talking about how SysKit can help you with user monitoring. You can check our pages and find the recording of it there. But today, we're going to pick on another closely related subject. So each of our users runs various applications, and each of that applications uses fair share of resources. So what SysKit enables you is to get a complete overview of when and which applications are being used across your workstations, servers, XenApp or RDS environments. You can easily pinpoint the exact time a certain application was started, exact time the certain application ended. You can discover which applications are your users using the most, which are not used at all. And there's lots and lots of other statistics, and all are centered to your published applications. So, as I've already mentioned, all the applications started by users connecting to your servers are spending certain system resources. And many users running many applications are pretty much bound to stretch those resources to the limits. And that will happen especially if you're not properly managing your environment. And, well, one of the things included in proper environment managing is definitely the application performance monitoring. So with SysKit is here to help you with that. With SysKit, you can audit CPU and memory usage for each user and for each application on your servers. You can track disk reads and writes for each application. You can track free disk space on all servers. And all of those performance counters tracked by SysKit are tracked in real time as well as audited historically. And that means you can simply go back and pinpoint the issue at a particular time frame the problem occurred. And finally, the application license compliance, the very important part of application monitoring. Let me first explain my quite unclear thought right just under the heading of this slide. Now, if you have more licenses than you actually need, that means you're spending, well, too much money. But if you don't have enough licenses, you risk license agreement violations and other illegal fines that goes with it, and they will cost you more than a new license, like a lot more. To elaborate further, if you have much more application licenses than your users are running, you're in fact, well, throwing money away. And that's something almost 30% of enterprises do. You wouldn't believe it, but that is the number according to the 2016 research. Now, all those licenses have already been paid for, and now you I don't know, go and check it out, and you discover that 20% of them is actually not consumed. That fact says that you have serious problem with over-licensing. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you don't have enough licenses, well, then you risk multiple users using single license. And that is in most cases, well, in most cases, it leads to a license agreement violation, and that violation is followed by a fine with more zeros than 64 written binary. And you don't want to pay for that. So at the end, I can only reassure you that you should have no worries. With SysKit, you can easily detect over and under licensing, and you can analyze application usage data, and it will enable you to plan your future license purchases and keep your license consumption at bay. So this was a very quick overview of what you're going to see in today's demo. And now we can get started. Let me just transfer to my demo environment. Okay. Okay. According to our yearly survey, application reporting is the second most popular SysKit feature, just behind the user activity reporting, of which we talked about in our last webinar that I mentioned in our intro. Now, I'm going to guide you through the bunch of SysKit reports that will provide you with the information about the usage and performance of your applications. So, first of all, the problem starts with multiple users connecting to your service every day, as you can see in the session log user report here. And often the same users connect to multiple servers simultaneously, and that makes for an even higher session count. Now today we need to go even deeper. So each of that connected users and their sessions, inside of them there's a multiple applications running, and all of that applications are something we should monitor in our system. So we're going to click on application reports and check out user application timeline. So with this report, you can track which user used which specific application. So we have here sort, and for each session, you have plenty of applications, and for each of that applications you can know when the instance was started, when was it ended, and what was the actual time spent running inside of that session. You can always use a filter if you feel you have too much data in a report, and as you can see, well, there's plenty of data for one month worth of monitoring. Let's say, for example, I'm interested in who was using the Microsoft CRM application yesterday. So I just go to the date range filter. I select yesterday. And then I go to applications and I point out the Microsoft, and I point only the Microsoft CRM. Okay, and we can see now that the amount of data significantly lessened in the report now. It's much easier to see, it's much easier to track what I'm actually looking for. And as a result, there is only sessions with Microsoft CRM application running within them. Now, the next interesting report is the most used applications. So I'm gonna open it, but first I'm gonna return all the applications in our filter. Okay, now this report allows us to determine the most frequently used application, and you can filter it per specific user, specific server, specific time periods. And this report is very important not directly but indirectly, because you should always look to tweak your environment to accommodate everyday usage habits of your users. And that means allocating resources to those applications that are most often used and simply adapting your environment to those applications. So if we filter the data to accommodate the results over the previous month, which is, well, much more important data than over 1 day in case of this report. You can notice that the most used applications was Microsoft CRM, Server Manager, Microsoft Office, Illustrator, and so on. Well, you're probably wondering why I simply jumped over the first three. Well, the first three applications here are running all the time equally. And that is because those applications are critical for RDS host functioning, and this server is working like 24/7, and therefore they are running the equal amount of time always. If you have problem with them or you would like to clear your report, you can of course go to the application filter, and let's say it is the okay, it is this one. I simply remove it from filter, and we got the results without them. I could have done this for all three of these applications, but I would be simply wasting your time, because this is, well, it's the same procedure for each application. Now, our next step will be application usage summary report, the one here. And this report summarizes all data about application usage. So for each application used over the previous month, we can see the time users spent in application. You can see the average time spent. You can see the average time spent active and average time spent idle. But besides that, you can see for each application, you can see the number of instances. An instance is counted every time the application is started. So since I've mentioned the application instances, it would be good to show you the next report, and that is, sorry, this one, and let's check instances per hour. Okay, so as this report's name say, this report shows you the number of application instances per hour. And we can see this report is probably better to look if we look at it 1 day, not the whole month. So, okay, we can see the maximum number of application instances that day, and that number mostly represents the single user that started them. And we can see the average number of applications run within that hour. So since this is most likely the single user, you can easily track it. It says 2 p.m. here, and this is sorted by hour, so I just find 2 a.m. I'm sorry, 2 p.m. And I see that Marin Radley is the one that was running 30 applications at that time frame. Now, in this report, you can notice a pattern where number of application instances rises during the day, during the workday, and starts dropping towards the end. Now, this is probably due to your users not shutting down applications after they finished, but keeping them in tabs all the way until the end of the working day. And there's another instances report that you can probably use. It's instance detail. And in this report, you can see, it is easier to see it that way. In this report, you can see how many instances of specific application a specific user is running. And this way, SysKit helps you to determine which applications and users are potentially using most resources on your servers. Now, the number of application instances is also important because some applications are licensed to run only one instance at a time. And by tackling by tracking application instances, you can prevent potential license agreement violations, which I talked about earlier, and licenses are important. So, and since I already started talking about licenses, now let's talk, well, about licenses. We go to licenses report. Okay, and license compliance, and definitely this is a report that should be looked over a 1 month period. So what you can see here is the license compliance report, and it tells you the number of available, COSAMT, and remaining licenses, and it provides you with the status calculated on the number of these values. So as you can see here, some of the applications are over licensed, some of the applications are under licensed, and like I mentioned earlier, by being over licensed, you're practically throwing your money away, and by being under licensed, well, you're risking something completely different. You're risking the violation of your users to be in violation of license agreements, and then you're risking a fine. Now, there's one more thing you should actually look out for, and that is the Microsoft Office licenses. Now, the older Microsoft Office suites were licensed per device, while all the newer versions are licensed per users. So you should keep that in mind when setting up manually your license compliance monitor. Not exactly on this subject related, but SysKit also allows you to track client licenses under the client license report. And this is very useful if you have RDS or Citrix environments. Now, all of these licenses are easily manageable. I mean, not licenses, but license monitoring is easily manageable. All you need to do is click the Manage Licenses. And let's say, for example, I'm missing a Illustrator license, which is application per user license, and therefore I'm risking. So, and I bought another one. I just opened this, and I add another one license in my program. I click Apply. But that's not all. I also decided that I should monitor my Microsoft CRM licenses. And I just go to New License. It is the application per user license, and I find it here. Okay, and I bought 20 licenses, and I click Apply. Okay, okay. And now I see that the overall status is much better. I bought some new licenses and saved stuff that was under licensed. I continued to monitor Microsoft CRM licenses. And since software license management is an ongoing process, it would be wise to schedule this report to be sent regularly to your email. But to do that, I just click on Schedule Report. And then I get this dialog where I can enter the name of the subscription so I can differentiate them. I enter one or more emails where I want the report to be sent, enter subject. I can choose the time frame in which the report will be delivered, and I can even add additional reports, which makes sense at this time. Since we are subscribing to application license compliance, I could add client license compliance. I just click a report, and I select from this menu that is similar as that is the same, to be exact, and I simply find the license reports and select. Okay, so that would be it about licenses. This is the most important stuff. And lastly, there is always a question of application performance status. Now, your users running lots of applications will definitely put a strain on your system performance, and it needs to be kept in check regularly. For that, we go to performance reports. Okay, and then under the application performance, there are two reports available, and they enable you to track the performance values of all the applications run by your remote users, and they can be tracked in real time and historically. So for each application, you can track, of course, its process ID. You can track the CPU usage, memory, disk reads, disk writes, and IOPS. And that is not all. The values shown in the real-time report, which is this one, well, they are updated every 60 seconds, and they are by default grouped by the computer. They can be easily, of course, filtered by application, but this is one whole overview of currently running applications. And what is even greater is that you can simply right-click on any process application and end it if you consider it harmful, or it is hogging much of your resources, or you see any kind of problem with it. Now in history performance report, for the whole month. Now this report will show you the average performance values over the selected time frame, I mean over the previous month. And for each of that performance counters, you can visualize detailed variations in those performance counters. Now there's lots of data here, but I can let's say I'm interested only in server SP1, which has apparently has some kind of problem. So okay, I open that report and I see our first process application, and I go and try dig a little deeper to find out something, and then I see that there was a wild increase or peak in disk reads, writes, basically IOPS operations, and it happened on February 22nd, and in real life that would probably be something that you would want to come in and take a look at. So this is the end of our demo today. Let me just transfer back to presentation. Okay, so this was demo with covering the basics about the application usage monitoring. And if you would like to arrange a one-on-one demo, perhaps for a more detailed explanations, feel free to contact our sales team at sales@acceleratio.net. It is now time for the Q&A session. We are going to read and answer a couple of interesting questions from the audience. Just to remind you, all the questions not answered publicly now will be answered in our webinar summary. Can we start with the questions, Frane?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Silvio. This was very, very good introduction into the capabilities of the software. So I will just try to cover a few questions like Silvio mentioned. Let me just change the presenter mode to me and let me share my remote desktop connection. Silvio, can you see it?
Yes, I see it, Frane. It's okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so first question is, can I monitor per user per device calls, and can I know what are the users or devices. So Silvio mentioned that before. I hope he covered a lot of details about this type of licenses. Basically, how we extract this from the server is we count the number of different users or devices that are connecting to your particular servers. So what you can do is, if you click on any application that you specified, so for example, Silvio just a few minutes ago specified that he has 14 Adobe Illustrator licenses and 20 Microsoft CRM licenses. If you click on the application and then if you drill down, then you will see the exact users who are consuming this particular license. Of course, if we select a period of 30 days, for example, then if we drill down, we'll see in this period of 30 days who are the specific users that are consuming the licenses. The same is for the devices as well. So basically, as application is able to track the client names of the application of the connections that are connecting to your servers. Let me just show it to you. If we go to user reports and then network traffic reports, basically when user connects to the server, then you will see that the username, the IP address, and basically the client name of that device who is connecting to your environment. And then basically, if multiple users are using different devices, you will see that client name as well. And then on the license reports, you will see exactly what are the devices and what is the count of that different devices that are connecting to your environment. Okay, let's move on to another question. Can I disable some applications? By default, when you install applications somewhere in your environment, when you add the servers and when you start the monitoring, basically we are monitoring all the apps that application discovers on the server. What you can do is, if you go to configuration, then options, and then where is it now? Or maybe not on the options, but manage applications. Basically, any application that application discovers on the server can be disabled. Either by default it's enabled, but if you want to disable, let's say, some kind of generic processes like RDP clipboard or Explorer exe or something like that, you can type in here this application and then basically you can disable it. What that means is when you disable the application, you will not see it anymore in the reports. So for example, let's say it's for some generic processes like this first one, .NET Runtime Optimization Service Explorer or some other Windows processes. So this can be easily disabled. Okay. What is the impact? So the another question is, what is the impact on the monitored servers? Basically, the application, when you install it, so it depends really on the number of servers that you are monitoring. But if you have, let's say, more than 20-30 servers, we recommend to install it on the dedicated server with, let's say, 4 CPU cores and 8 gigs of RAM. Of course, dedicated database server is required as well. It really depends on the number of users that are connecting to your servers, because basically if on the single server you have, let's say, more than 200 users, so let's say we have some really large clients that are trying to fit as much as they can users on one machine, then those users are using different applications, and basically those are really huge servers, and basically it takes a while to extract this performance data from that particular server. So it's important to mention here that all the processing is offloaded to the SysKit server. So when you install the SysKit server somewhere, we connect through the WMI to the remote server, and all the calculation, all the processing is offloaded to the SysKit server. So if we need to calculate something, to do something on the report, everything will be offloaded, and basically we are pinging the remote server every 1 minute to extract all this amount of data, but that is an option in the application that you can easily customize. So if you want to increase that, maybe to ping the remote server every 15 seconds, or you can decrease that value to, let's say, ping it every 5 minutes. It is not so important for me. Okay, let's move on to another question. Is how we collect the data. So basically the protocols that are used for data collection is WMI for all this kind of performance reports that Silvio mentioned before. So basically we extract a lot of different stuff about the CPU processes, memory usage and stuff like that. But basically when you go down to the application, that is nothing else than the WMI. So basically you can see for every process what is the CPU consumed, memory, and what is the impact on the disk. For the users who are connecting to the servers, we are using basically the TS API, and this means when you install the SysKit somewhere in your environment, you are not required to install any kind of an agent on the remote server. So we just capture data through the native Windows functions. So basically nothing gets installed on your remote mission critical server. Okay, so let's move on to another question. Is can you get me a list of all installed applications? Yes, so Silvio mentioned that basically there is an inventory feature in the application where basically the tool is connecting to all the servers, and so you have a list of different applications that are installed on the server. Basically you have the version, publisher, all the things that you see in the programs and features on in control panel. What is interesting, you can take a log of what are the installed applications on your particular servers, and how we do this is basically when we perform a snapshot of the server, we remember all the installed applications, and then basically if any kind of application is installed in the future, then you can compare multiple snapshots, and then you can see that there was some application that was installed, let's say yesterday. So the application can track the installed applications and all this different stuff over time. So for example, if there is any kind of change on, let's say, installed applications, on available updates, on installed updates, services, or anything else, the application will track that over time, and then basically if there is any change in your inventory, the SysKit will inform you. Okay. The next question is where is data stored? So by default, so when you download the trial from our web pages, the application comes with an embedded database. So that means you can just install it somewhere to try. That embedded database, let's say, it can be used for few servers. But of course, if you have anything more than let's say a few servers, we recommend a dedicated SQL server. So basically in the backend, you have a SQL server. So for example, in this scenario, SQL Server 2014, and then of course you have a database, and all the information about the applications, about all the logs, all the users are stored in that SQL database. So application is able to generate, let's say, 20 to 30 megabytes of data per server per month. Let me continue. Is there a mobile or web interface so admin delegation to another staff can monitor the apps? So yes, there is a web application available. I'm sorry, I probably don't have it on this particular server, but basically web application is working on top of the IIS server, and basically we just install another IIS site, and all of these reports that Silvio and I generated here can be viewed as a web page as well. Okay, Silvio, I think I have covered all the most important questions, and let's move on. So if some questions are not answered, we'll try to get in touch with you so we can help you directly. So I will just, can you please change presenter to you?
Okay, wait a second. Okay. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the Q&A session. I think we have answered all of our questions. Yes, we have. And with the Q&A session, this is the end of our webinar. Thank you all for joining us today, and if you have any questions, please contact us at support@acceleratio.net or sales@acceleratio.net. So have a good day, and I hope I'll see you soon in another one of our webinars. Thanks again. Take care. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.